Welcome back to that Eurovision site, where today we will be talking about a national final that we've not talked about for quite a long time. I think, if ever, we're talking about Depi Evratesil from Armenia, which is back after 4 years away, since 4 or 5, depending on how you count it. I'm Daniel. I'm joined today by Angus.
Hello, Angus, part of the Finger Gun crowd, here once again to just yap away about a national final.
Yeah. So, for of you who do not know, Armenia, they have returned to their national final format after the past 3 years they've been participating. Of course, no participation in 2021 because reasons. But the last 3 years they used an internal selection format, which did pretty well for them on the whole. So, what do you make of them moving back to this format after a period of success internally?
Um, on the one hand, why not? It does give it is a podium for a lot of these artists that otherwise would not have had this podium even within Armenia. Again, I'm not aware of any of these artists. I'm not immersed in the Armenian pop scene or any other music scene of Armenia in any way. But it's extra attention for them both in Armenia and as limited as it is, also the Euro fandom beyond that. So for the artists, I think it is really cool that the broadcasting does this. Um, and I do have to think that AMTV is sort of in the same boat, but the opposite way that RTV Slow is, where RTV Slow, so Slovenia assumes it has a national final and then randomly cancels it. Whereas here in Armenia, it feels more like they were supposed to do an internal selection and then last minute decide to hold the national final. I
Yeah.
don't think that's necessarily accurate, but that is how it now feels with the way it is being organized.
Yeah, I think we did a series in the off season where we sort of created national finals for countries who at the time did not have one. And the first question was, do you think this country will bring back a national final, and should they? My answer for Armenia was maybe, but don't. And I'm feeling a little bit vindicated because if they're going to bring back a national final, why this one? It feels like a lot of these songs do not need to be in this show because I sure hope they're not going to win because I don't think they are even some of them even remotely near the quality of something that should be winning. There is some there is some good things in here, and I will get onto that, but it's offset dramatically by some of the others. And I feel like it was kind of rushed in bringing it back. Bring back a national final, sure, but you need to like lay foundations. Like get like specifically say we're going to bring it back in a few years, and just get like an industry building up around it, like so many other countries have got.
Just felt a
So
bit sudden. And
yeah,
and I'm
and
sure that maybe for the broadcaster it wasn't, and also they have done national finals before, and a lot of the people, as far as I'm aware, a lot of the people that did do work for uh, surrounding Eurovision in Armenia back then still do it now. But it's still to a lot of people, even that are immersed in the Eurovision fandom, it was a bit of a, oh, it's returning and is returning this year.
yeah, it was very, very sudden and very, very late in information. Like we weren't even sure like a week ago that we were even getting songs, before they were even performed live. And I've seen like 7 different leaked lists that were completely fake of people who are apparently taking part. So
Yeah, it's just I think what is
it's just
notable
been
is
very confusing to follow.
yeah, I believe we got the announcement that there would be. a national final again. The Depi Evratesil would return late November, which is a lot of countries had already closed their submissions window by then. I mean, Montesong was basically just around the corner. Was it already? Just one of the two. So it feels very late in the process that this was announced. Again, I don't know how much the broadcaster had already prepared on this, but the way that information is being just slowly handed out does make it very much feel last minute decision.
So as for the songs themselves, which ones for you are the standouts, good or bad?
Um, I mean, the good standouts are yeah, I quite like Sevagir with Falling. It's a fairly like it doesn't do anything too special, but it's a fairly solid like post-rock-esque rock song. It has a similar guitar like it has a guitar effect I really love. It has less pronounced, but we already saw this national final season with DK Energetic over in Ukraine. Song I also really enjoyed. The other band, Alt Site, are I mean you could put that song in Burnout Revenge or any late zeros racing game or in Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and no one will bat an eye like no one will bat an eye at it. For better and worse, but I quite like it. Then there's a lot of just the things. A lot of the songs here are variations of what I feel is Armenian pop, or at least part of the pop scene. But then did have a producer or songwriter go over it to make it more accessible for Europe. But I do feel that it's sort of now awkwardly falls in between the two, where it's not what we see, for example, a lot with Folktronica. It becomes its unique thing, but it also doesn't fully feel Armenian, or really it's Western pop tinged with elements of. It falls a bit in between a lot of the time for me. That being said, I can if so a lot of these songs, if they are performed or staged well, I can see me enjoying them a lot more than in the studio versions. Not that these studio versions are per se bad. I think there's just a lot of space for these songs to still grow into.
I think the song that is most similar to something that I would actively listen to outside of this contest is Milena Miranian with Romantic Net. I have thoughts about how like she could perform that live. I'm don't particularly think it's going to do brilliantly because if I don't love it, no one's gonna love it really. Because it's really fine. It's enjoyable. It won't keep me going back. On the other hand, Parg Survivor gets Thomas Gison out of Armenia immediately. He is, for all intents and purposes, good at his job as a songwriter. Whether you like him or hate him, and we all love to hate him, he would not keep getting work if he did not get results. But what is the trade-off here? Because Armenia have such a different like music scene to Sweden, and he does. Let's face it, you will like a Thomas Gison song that's been in Melfest, even if you don't realize it. There's just that many. There's definitely one that you enjoy. But coming over to Armenia, a country that he probably doesn't know all that much about, and sort of just like transplanting a song in there, it's not what I think anyone wants from Armenia, a Thomas Gison song.
Yeah, can I also just say, besides that, what also bugs me is so we have 12 songs in this national final, and over a quarter of all songwriters are just for this one song. Because we don't really have repeat
Jesus
songwriters. Almost
Christ.
every song is involved, but like has the actual artist involved with it in some way, in almost every song. And I understand songwriting is a collaborative process, and it's not necessarily bad to have a lot of songwriters on the song, especially if you do sampling. But that's the thing. Eurovision doesn't do sampling, so you would already have to change the sample so much that you don't really start getting this, oh, we need to give writing credits to XYZ because they came up with the original melody or something. And here we have two, three, four, five, six. We have eight songwriters, one of which admittedly is Park. but we have 8 songwriters in total for a song that's 3 minutes long. And that's just too much. Like, if it were an eight-piece band, that would be a different conversation, but it's not. This is an individual singer, and it's just him. And it's not like he has a big band backing him beyond. It's just baffling. I understand it's part of modern pop music and modern music in general, but it is something that really bugs me.
I'm going to talk about languages again. There's just nowhere near enough Armenian for an Armenian show. I think there are two songs partially in Armenian. That is it. I think one that you already mentioned, Sevegi Falling. I
Yeah,
loved the bit that was in Armenian. It was great, but the English bits either side were not.
and then I Papare Bye, which has some of the most embarrassing English lyrics I've
I,
ever heard in my life, and I'm really sorry to say, and I do feel
I
bad
am
saying it.
very
Like, I'm
happy
also
most
not
of my reaction to that got cut out.
like I'm not like English is not my first language. Technically speaking, it's my third, and I have some old phrasings here and there, and I know that when you write a song, it can still sound very poetic when you write in a not your mother tongue, and then come out with a song. But this just it feels very awkward, and the delivery makes it worse. Um, but then again, this is something that could actually work live because we now only have the studio cuts with just the artist photos. So all we have to focus on really is are the lyrics. Especially after you've
Yeah.
listened to the song twice, then you really start digging into those lyrics. Whereas if we have it live, and especially some of these songs are going to be very performance heavy, and Eurovision is an audio visual contest, and same will be true for this national final, we're already looking at a very different situation potentially.
Yeah, I feel the way that you would elevate I Papare by is staging it in a way that will get me to hate it even more. Because I said in the Defi Evratesil reaction videos, you could not get a more anti-me Coda song if you actively tried. That is not my thing at all. I hope it. I hope the live can at least be fun in an like in a watching a human do an interesting thing way. Like it's a type of song that could have a potential to just a staging's just so whack that it sort of elevates it even to the people who do not like that song. And if you look at that man, he is capable of that. He's shirtless with a furry coat on. He's definitely got some whack ideas. So it will be interesting to see.
The thing is, we have still so little to work. We're recording this on the week of this national final, to be clear. It's a one night national final, pure televote. But also because it's pure televote, we don't have jury members, so we can't really think or talk about that. Televote is very unpredictable, especially in a country that hasn't had a national final for a while. We don't know what the situation is going to be here. Like, we know nothing about the stage or the staging. It's
Yeah.
all a complete mystery to us. And it
And
can be good, but it does mean that at the moment, you start focusing on certain things, and a lot of time there will be worries because
and we don't really know who is or isn't big in Armenia. Like, there could be one of them who is just huge and will win based off that. We don't know.
yeah, and
As
even
much as
then
we liked it.
they might be big, but also not. For example, obviously Athena Manoukian almost went to Eurovision, but then Eurovision was cancelled. Alt site do have a Wikipedia page, and they apparently were in the 2018 edition, unnamed Alternative, which also named were finalists on the X Factor Armenian. But I don't know how relevant all that, for example, still is, or what is their fan base like at the moment. And even if I now went on the Instagram page and looked at their followers or looked at how many people listen to them on Spotify, that does not tell me how big their televote potential is.
Yeah. It also depends on what kind of country Armenia is when it comes to voting, whether they will vote for a person or a song. Because it
And yeah.
really varies depending on the country.
And
Like,
also for example, we've seen in Germany people vote for the song they think will do well in Eurovision, which is also something that Plague You decide in the UK. Whereas other countries, Albania, for example, as soon as they had the televote, they focus just on whatever song they liked.
Yeah, and that's great. More people should do that. Shall we channel? I know you're German. Shall you channel your inner German? Which song will do best at Eurovision out of these?
Which song will do, based on what we have so far, I think like rock songs have a hard time with it, but I think alt-sci is just threading that needle well enough that they could actually get do well enough to make to the final and then get enough jury points to get like a 15th, like mid-table finish. Um, and then we're also kind of looking at either Mel's with Losing or Gevorg Harutunian with Heyman as just
Hey,
old, they're relative oddballs, both in the selection and they would be in Eurovision. Especially this year where we have a relatively high amount of poppy bangers in a variety of shapes and sizes, definitely. But if you come with something a bit more out there, I think you can do quite well. And I think those songs do fulfill that brief.
I will say Mel's or either of the bands, but I don't think any of them really are gonna get to the heights that I know Armenia are capable of. That if they really, really put their mind to it, they could probably consistently achieve. But
I mean,
maybe,
yeah,
maybe this is just like it was a rushed show. That submissions only opened in November, so there wasn't really time to write a song specifically for it. So I would be interested to see maybe if a Depi Evratesil 2026 was like maybe a lot stronger and a lot more polished as well, hopefully.
a lot of
Because
it just
it,
depends on the staging team.
yeah,
Because and that's the thing that's also something we don't really know, especially with context now of a national final being added to it, because some countries just let artists do it themselves for national final and then throw the resource behind it, so there's a bit in between. Armenia feels always a bit in between where they do let the artist have a big say about it creatively, but they do also seem to have their own team assisting very much with it. But for example, Wild by Anahit and Gazoya, I mean that has Tokyo 9, who has won Junior Eurovision with some of the songs he's written as part of the songwriting team. Does he maybe have connections within staging that can basically bring the Armenian Junior Eurovision stage, which has always been famously well done, to the Eurovision main stage, um, and so on and so forth.
yeah. So unless we have any final thoughts, thank you very much for watching this Depi Evratesil pre-discussion. We might just be seeing you again after the show for the post-discussion, where we'll see if anything we said came to fruition. It rarely does on these. But be sure to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, leave a comment about what your favorites for this selection are, and be sure to follow That Eurosite on all of our platforms: Twitter, Blue Sky, Facebook, Tumblr, Threads, Instagram, and also be sure to check out that Eurovision podcast where this will be uploaded. So, hello if you're listening on there. You can find that on all of your podcast platforms. All that's left to say now is goodbye.
Bye.